who showed up. This is Bo. He's gone on lots and lots of walks over the last couple of days just so we can get out of the house. So he's been a pretty good boy. A little out of sorts like we all are. So anyway, I'm going to continue on with chapter 14, knitting done. So I left you on page 361. So we start to see a change in the two scenes. At the like the last fourth of the page on 361, we had Miss Pross and Jerry Cruncher talking, and just in the back of our minds, Dickens says this several times. It says, and still Madame Defarge, pursuing her way along the streets, came nearer and nearer. So then we have Miss Pross and Jerry Cruncher speaking again. And then again on the bottom of 361, still Madame Defarge, pursuing her way along the streets, came nearer and nearer. So as we're having this casual conversation with Jerry and Miss Pross, Dickens is reminding us that we have this ravaged woman who wants nothing but revenge is coming nearer and nearer. So moving on to 362, we see that Miss Pross and Madame Defarge finally come head to head. So Madame Defarge, basically wants to know, now we're on 363, is where's the wife of Evrémonde? And Miss Pross, who we've loved all along with that crazy red hair, she has a little bit of spunk in her. She's not going to let anybody hurt her little ladybird. So we have two very passionate women, Madame Defarge and Miss Pross, now one wanting to get Lucy and one trying to protect Lucy. So Miss Pross on page 363 is her first reaction is to close all the doors to hide Lucy. So Miss Madame Defarge cannot get to her. So we see Miss Pross on page 363 measuring up Madame Defarge inch by inch. So just staring at her up. So it's like we have this standoff between these two women, and it's just such a great scene. One thing to note is each woman speaks a different language. We have Miss Pross who is speaking English and Madame Defarge speaking French, but we can pretty much assume what each is saying. So on page 364, I'm going to read a lot of it. At the very top, I have in my notes, you go, Pross, because she's going to stand up for our little ladybird. And so, again, they're speaking in a language neither understands. So at the very top, it said, this is Miss Pross. If those eyes of yours were bed wenches and I was an English four-poster, they wouldn't loose a splinter of me. No, you wicked foreign woman, I am your match. And then Madame Defarge goes on, woman imbecile and pig-like. And then moving on, a little thought, said Miss Pross, that I should ever want to understand your nonsensical language, but I would give all I have except the clothes I wear to know whether you suspect the truth or any part of it. Then Dickens says, neither of them for a single moment released the other's eyes. Madame Defarge had not moved from the spot where she stood when Miss Pross first became aware of her, but she now advanced one step. And then Miss Pross continues on, I am desperate. I don't care. In English, 2 pence for myself. I know that the longer I keep you here, the greater hope there is for my ladybird. I'll not leave a handful of that dark hair upon your head if you lay a finger on me. You go, Pross. So she's going to protect. And then, moving on, so they each have their own obsessions with Lucy. One is for good and one's for not good. Page 365 at the top, Miss Pross says, as long as you don't know where they are in that room or not, you are uncertain what to do. And then she continues on, we are alone at the top of a high house in a solitary courtyard. We are not likely to be heard, and I pray for bodily strength to keep you here while every minute you are here is worth 100,000 guineas to my darling, said Pross. And then, moving on, that next paragraph says, Madame Defarge made at the door. Miss Pross, on the instinct of the moment, seized her round the waist in both arms and held her tight. It was in vain for Madame Defarge to struggle and strike. Miss Pross, with a Vigorous tenacity of love, always so much stronger than hate, clasped her tight and even lifted her from the floor in the struggle that they had. The two hands of Madame Defarge buffeted and tore her face, but Miss Pross, with her head down, held her round the waist and clung to her with more than the hold of a drowning woman. So they're struggling. And then moving on, of course, we remember that Madame Defarge had a dagger and a knife with her. So moving on, still on page 365, you shall not draw it. I am stronger than you. I bless heaven for it. I'll hold you till one or other of us faints or dies. Madame Defarge's hands were at her bosom. Miss Pross looked up, saw what it was, struck at it, struck out a flash and a crash, and stood alone, blinded with smoke. So we have continuing on, basically, Miss Pross is the one that kills Madame Defarge. Of all people, she was going to fight to the death to save Lucy. So, that wild hair, saved the day. So she becomes deaf because of the gunshot. She can't hear anything. Jerry Cruncher comes back. It's a comical scene at the end. Just Jerry doesn't understand that she can't hear. So continuing on, so we got Miss Madame Defarge taken care of. Now we got to figure out how the heck everything's going to end with the very last chapter. Enjoy.